Arjun, our angels here, Nanda Manjari, and like so many others. Thank you so much, and forgive me in advance for any things that I do not miss, that I don't speak correctly or well enough. Such an honor. So let's begin. And Adi does it so beautifully, as everyone always says. You don't really need to do Jaya Radha again, but it just settles me in, so I'm not talking even faster than I normally talk. So we'll sing. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Giridhari Gopi Janavalava Giridhari Gopi Janavara Giridhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Nandana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Nandana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Chiravanachari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And also, happy Kartik to everyone. This most auspicious month. I wanted to read something. We say, even before I begin, we say the word auspicious a lot. And I was reading Madhurya Kamambini, and it gives a really great explanation. You know, I've never really heard an explanation about what auspicious means. I just always kind of thought, oh, it just means special. But listen here what it says as we begin to in this auspicious month. Auspiciousness consists of such qualities as disinterest in material affairs, interest in the Supreme Lord, friendliness, mercy, forgiveness, truthfulness, simplicity, equanimity, fortitude, gravity, respectfulness, humility, and being pleasing to all. And so when we say this is auspicious month, let us hope that this month of Kartik helps us get those qualities. It's in all of you. Hope that it gets those qualities in me. So we'll be reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, chapter 74, verses 35 and 36. I will just do the Sanskrit for the one and then read the English translation as much as for time as to spare you my bad Sanskrit, as always. Varnashrama Kula Petaha Sarva Dharma Bahiskirtaha Sreravarti Gunai Hinaha Sarparyam Katam Arhati. Translation and purports by the beautiful, wonderful devotees and servants of His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. This is Shishupal speaking. How does one who follows no principles of the social and spiritual orders or of family ethics, who has been excluded from all religious duties, who behaves whimsically and has no good qualities, how does such a person deserve to be worshipped? Srila Prabhupada comments from Krishna book. Actually, Krishna does not belong to any caste, nor does he have to perform any occupational duty. It is stated in the Vedas that the Supreme Lord has nothing to do as his prescribed duty. Whatever has to be done on his behalf is executed by his different energies. Shishupal indirectly praised Krishna by saying that he is without the jurisdiction of the Vedic injunction. This is true because he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That he has no qualities means that Krishna has no material qualities. And because he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he acts independently, not caring for conventions or social or religious principles. Verse 36. Yayati cursed the dynasty of the Yadavas, and ever since then they have been ostracized by honest men and addicted to liquor. How then does Krishna deserve to be worshipped? Srila Vishwanath Charabhakti gives the inner meaning of the words of Shishupal to show how he continued unintentionally glorifying Krishna and his Yadu dynasty. Even though the Yadus were cursed by Yayati, they have been relieved of this curse by great saints, and consequently, they've been raised to a position of royal sovereignty by such persons as Kartavirya. Thus, they become absorbed in Pana, protecting the earth. Considering all this, how does Krishna, the chief of the Yadus, deserve useless worship? Rather, he deserves opulent worship. Om Jnana-timirandit Shatchananjanan Shalakaya Takshurmitamina Tasmai Shri Gurade Namaha Vanchakopaturibachak Kripasindhuebachak Patitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavi No Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivas Uri Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare. And again, thank you all so much. Forgive me, and I ask for your blessings. When I read these series of verses, I thought of this little thing right here that a lot of us devotees have. If you're not looking at the screen, it's a clicker. And some of us have clickers on rings. And I don't know what ordinary people, other people do with these clickers because they sell them more to just devotees. But we know what we do. We click the rounds as we go by. And as I was thinking about Shishupal, I was thinking he has been clicking his offenses. And right about this verse, I would say he's like at click number 95, I'd say. Click 100's coming, and someone else will have that great honor of showing that click. But let's remind ourselves where this clicking, which is this offensive behavior, which will be mostly what I'll be wanting to highlight today, begins. Let's remind ourselves who Shishupal is. You know, his offensive behavior just didn't begin at this birth. It begins way back when he is Jaya with his brother Vijay, standing at the gate. And what do? They show offensive behavior to the Kumaras. They judge through their pridefulness these four great souls. And there's two things right there, just getting into that story, right? They have let their positions made them prideful, so they don't see. So they don't see that in front of them, these four blissful, beautiful sages are right there. And because they judge, because they put themselves high, because I was just reading last night, Bhagavad Gita 13, 8 through 12, and the first thing Lord Krishna says is actually intelligence. He says is humility. And so they've walked away from being intelligent because they're let their pride get away from them. And they judge the four Kumars. And because they judge them, they then offend them. And because they offend them, then they have these three births as demons. And I got to say, I mean, if you're going to take birth as demons, this is the way to do it because They picked like the big three, right? So for here they come. Here he comes as Hiranyakashipu, who of course gets killed by Lord Nrsimhadev. And there he comes again as Ravana, who of course gets to be killed by Lord Ram. And now here's his Shishupal. And I'm not going to give a spoiler alert because we all know it's coming, but someone will have the great honor of speaking. Isn't it interesting? Exactly one verse about how he meets his end this time. There's a battle forever with Hiranyakashipu. There's a battle forever with Ravana. One verse about how he's to meet his end through Krishna. Just like as one of my friends always points out, there's exactly one verse when Krishna picks up Govardhan Hill. So much strung and gain, but the big acts Krishna does, just like that. Game over. It's taken. It's done. So here is Shishupal doing this offensive behavior by ridiculing or trying to ridicule Krishna. And he's not even doing it correctly because he's inadvertently praising him. Some of you know I have this wonderful job. I perform in hospitals for children as a clown. And as a clown, you do the exact opposite, right? And so for teenagers, we also do, instead of the "your mama's so fat, you do," we do the opposite. We say, "Your mama's so beautiful, she looks like a model." And the kids are like, "No, that's you do." "No, I love your mama's cooking so much." That sort of reminds you what Shishupal is doing. He's doing the opposite, because how can you deride, and this is giving you a clue of what verse I'm going to pull up in a moment, how can you possibly deride Krishna? How can you possibly put down that one that is without a second, that one who is, of mountains, is the Himalayas, is the syllable A, all these things. And so I think in this moment, Shishupal for me really exemplifies Bhagavad Gita 9:11. I'll bring that up for us. And it is, I won't read the whole purport, but man, it is, Srila Prabhupada goes for it. Speaking about, this is him in his full thunder mode, I feel like, with the fools and rascals. So this is Bhagavad Gita 9:11. Krishna says, "Fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature as the supreme Lord of all that be." Purport, and it's a long purport. I'm not read all of it, but I'll read some, because you can't go wrong with reading Srila Prabhupada's purports. From the other explanations of the previous verses in this chapter, it is clear that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, although appearing like a human being, is not a common man. The personality of Godhead, who conducts the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of the complete cosmic manifestation, cannot be a human being. Yet there are many foolish men who consider Krishna to be merely a powerful man and nothing more. Actually, he is the Supreme Personality, as is confirmed in the Brahma Samhita. Isvara Pranam Krishna. He is the Supreme Lord. There are many Ishvaras, controllers, and one appears greater than another. In the ordinary management of affairs in the material world, we find some official or director, and above him there is a secretary, and above him there is a minister, and above him there is a president. Each of them is a controller, but one is controlled by another. In the Brahma Samhita, it is said that Krishna is the supreme controller. There are many controllers, undoubtedly, both in material and spiritual world, but Krishna is the supreme controller, and his body is Satchitananda, non-material. Material bodies cannot perform the wonderful acts described in the previous verses. His body is eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge. Although he is not a common man, the foolish, Shishupal, deride him and consider him to be a man. His body is called Manusim because he's acting just like a man, a friend of Arjuna's, a politician involved in the Battle of Kurukshetra. In so many ways, he's, Kurukshetra. In so many ways, he is acting like an ordinary man, but actually his body is Satchitananda Vigraha, eternal bliss and knowledge absolute. This is confirmed in the Vedic language, Satchitananda Rupaya Krishnaya. I offer my obeisances onto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, who is the eternal blissful form of knowledge. There are other descriptions in the Vedic language also. You are Govinda, the pleasure of the senses and the cows, and your form is transcendental, full of knowledge, bliss, and eternity. Just one more paragraph here. Despite the transcendental qualities of the Lord's body, it's full bliss and knowledge. There were so many so-called scholars and commentators of Bhagavad Gita who deride Krishna as an ordinary man. The scholar may be born an extraordinary man to his previous good work, but this conception of Sri Krishna is due to a poor fund of knowledge. Therefore, he is called Mudha, for only foolish persons consider Krishna to be an ordinary being. The foolish consider Krishna an ordinary being because they do not know the confidential activities of the Supreme Lord and his different energies. They do not know that Krishna's body is a symbol of complete knowledge and bliss. And he is the proprietor of everything that be, and that he can award liberation to anyone. Because they do not know that Krishna has so many transcendental qualifications, they deride him. And in the next paragraph, Srila Prabhupada goes on and really pulls out the fool and such like this. But we see the point of what Shishupal has done here. Here is Satchitananda Vigraha standing in front. Here's Krishna standing right in front of him, and he mistakes him for a human being. He wasn't listening to, he doesn't, to quote the woman that he so wanted to marry, that Krishna took away from him. And I have to say, in that pastime, it was probably click, 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 the amount of offensive things he said about Krishna. When Rukmini says when Krishna says, I have nothing, she says, what did she say? We remember, she says, you don't have anything because you are everything. For those of us old enough to remember that song, it's from, I don't know, some Motown group. You are everything, and everything is you. There's an old song from the 70s. That is our Krishna. And yet, Shishupal doesn't see it. And so what does he do? What does he do? He offends. On, I think it was Monday, Adi, with such like conviction and thoroughness, reeled off for us the 10 offenses. And every morning, and thank you for those that are putting the camera on during Mangal Arti at the temple, because we are tuning in. I get to hear Mandahar's beautiful voice say those 10 offenses every single morning. Yeah, and let us remind ourselves, like, what is that first offense? What is it? To blaspheme the devotees who dedicated their lives for propagating the holy name of the Lord. That's the devotees. What to think of blaspheming the Lord himself. Yeah. And so Shishupal has committed this huge offense. It's so interesting when you're preparing for something, and then you will end up reading things that say that exact same thing. And just yesterday, as I'm reading the Madhurya Kandambini, what page do I open up on, except when they're talking about Vaishnav Aparad? This horrible offense, right? And really just quickly, what is said there is criticism of Vaishnav is the first of the 10 offenses of the holy name. It implies animosity, malice, and such. It's not just like, oh, it's not such a good thing today to think that you are spewing malice to the Supreme Lord. It is such a horrible offense because it is like a vidya that we see in the kleshas of the Yoga Sutras and other texts. It is the evil seed of which all other things grow. It's a reason it's the first offense. We see in yogic lists that's the first thing in the list that is the seed from which all the other things grow. And in this case, it is the offense from all the other offenses grow. This being offensive to other people, this being overcritical of other people. We know that in the 16th chapter, Bhagavad Gita 16:1, one of the characteristics of the saintly is not just that they don't fault find, it's the aversion to fault finding. Because there's this needing to for human beings and pick and pick and pick and fault find does, maybe I would say maybe it does something to the person you're picking at, but more important is what it does to you. What it does to you, how it breaks the garden of your heart, as we say, as it opens up the gates and let that mad elephant take all your practices and rip them to shreds. And so I wanted to quote some things that I found of what some of our acharyas and such have said about this offensive behavior. This is from Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. And he's saying about offensive behavior and chanting, he says the Hare Krishna Mahamantra shows magnanimity only and exclusively on the fully liberated and perfectly surrendered soul who are totally free from these 10 offenses to Harinam. But due to not receiving pure spiritual guidance, a foolish Hare Krishna chanter under the influence of false ego and pride directly jumps into the indolence of the offensive chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra without thinking. What he or she finds is that due to this foolishness, the harmful inclinations, anarthas, have actually increased rapidly instead of decreasing because of offensive chanting. Let's see that again. What he or she finds is that due to this foolishness of being offensive, the harmful inclinations, anarthas, have actually increased rapidly instead of decreasing because of offensive chanting. And what leads to offensive chanting? Being criticizing of devotees. And eventually, these 10 offenses quickly end up totally destroying even the little relish which was there initially in the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. It destroys it. It destroys it. And so let me pull up, I also want to share with you some things that Srila Prabhupada said about this offensive chanting. As Kali Yuga has become unbelievably more ghastly, the material disease of our offenses has also become more and more chronically incurable. Thus, it can no longer be cured by the normal means, which may have otherwise have worked before. In this ill-fated Kali Yuga, it now requires the most powerful, topmost, extreme, liberal, all-forgiving, merciful, and incisive medicine there is in the treasure house and arsenal of Krishna in the spiritual world to totally obliterate this disease of the 10 offenses from the very root. And what is that medicine? It is the holy name, but if we chant it inoffensively. My Guru Dev always says, His Holiness Danyadhar Maharaj, he says that bhakti really is simple. Even a child can do it. But what is difficult is avoiding offense. And I'll also read a few other things that my Guru Dev has said about criticizing and leading to this offensive behavior. He says, the poison of that which you criticize comes to you. It makes me think of what that great soul Nelson Mandela has been quoted as saying, when he said, being unforgiving is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. I feel that all the time when I've engaged in some critical behavior. Afterwards, I feel like I ate something bad for me. Danyadhar Maharaj also said, criticism is worse than throwing a spear in someone's body because the spear can only pierce the body, but criticism can pierce the heart. Isn't that true? I always say that, I broke my arm like half a lifetime ago in 2 places, had a metal rod put in it, 2 surgeries. I don't think of that at all. But I remember an unkind word that somebody told me when I was 5. I always say, whoever said sticks and stones may break your bones, but words could never hurt you, was telling one of the biggest untruths of all times, because words do hurt. Criticism does hurt. And finally, Maharaj says, criticism is worse than envy. Envy is when it's in the heart. Criticism is when it comes out, when we allow it to leave the gate of our mouth. So much the opposite of what Krishna tells us to do in the 17th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, when he talks about what speech should be: truthful but beneficial, pleasing, not agitating to others. And the last thing is really the clue, and always speaking of Krishna Katha. Because here's something that my Guru Dev always says. He says, that if you speak Prajalpa, then offense will surely follow. It is like a ball, and I know it myself. It is like a snowball rolling down the hill, isn't it? It's like you start just like talking about some innocuous thing, and the next thing you know, it has picked up steam and you're committing offense. And you are the one that's clicking, 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 clicking on your clicker. And so there's something I've been thinking about a lot with Shishupal, because one of the things I always like to do in these stories is I can't point the finger at Shishupal. And like we always say, because you got to know if the finger's pointing this way, there were three fingers pointing back at me. Shishupal, as we know, 100 offenses. Chanting inattentively, we are told, is also an offense, isn't it? I click or move those beads 1,728 times at least a day. How many? That's 1,700s and extra. How many times have I been offensive by being inattentive? That's been my meditation this week, and it is powerful. It's easy to think as Shishupal and all those demons and like, oh, that's that. I'm not them. I'm trying. But when we remember that additional, we get through those 10 offenses, and then it is also an offense to be inattentive when you're chanting your own name. Then I don't know about you, but I'm like, oh. And when you think clicking down to 100, that's Shishupal. But how many times have I clicked down to 100 even today? And so it's a reminder. It's a reminder of what this offensive would be. Like Bhakti Siddhanta tells us, it is the thing that will take away any goodness that we're working on. You do this, it is like the elephant thing. And I'd always heard that analogy. And finally, when I was in Thailand, I saw it. I saw the elephant take its bath, and then I saw it get out of the water and throw dirt on itself. I'd always heard it, but finally I saw it because they do it. And that's what we do. Or like Raghunath Kapo so beautifully, he says to us, we're all in the shower. We're all in the shower trying to get clean of our anarthas, of our bad qualities. And some of us just are newer in the shower, so there's a little bit more dirt. Some of us have been in the shower longer, but some of us have gotten out of the shower clean and then walked in, and then gotten dirty and had to walk in over and over and over again, like this revolving door. And so I'd like to end really quickly and open up for comments. And I hate when I have the thing open and then I don't hold on and then I made it go away. To open up with what Maharaj says is always like the anecdote, and what Adi every day reminds us to do, and that is to speak about Krishna. Like Guru Dev always says, you have to keep hearing good ideas. And that's how we can not offend. That's how we cannot make our language prajalpa, which will dive down into offense, which will then ruin the gardens of our heart. So I've been, one of the things for my Kartik vow, I'm reading some of the Brahma Samhita, and we sing, obviously some of it every day, but I just wanted to bring up a few verses to end, and then I'll open it up. For us to end, this is how we should be using our speech. This is conversations we should be have, because that will help us not offend, not be critical, and keep our minds trained on Krishna, so we can be attentive as we click our way through life. Yeah, so we're just going to do 38 to 42. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is Shamasundar, Krishna himself, with inconceivable, innumerable attributes, whom the pure devotees see in their heart of hearts with the eye of the devotion tinged with the sound of love. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who manifested himself personally as Krishna and the different avatars in the world in the forms of Ram, Nrsimha Dev, Vamadev, etc., as his subjective portions. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose effluence is the source of the non-differentiated Brahman mentioned in the Upanishads. Being differentiated from the infinity of glories of the mundane universe appears as the individual, infinite, limitless truth. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is the absolute subsistent principle, being the ultimate entity in the form of the subject of all existence, whose external potency embodies the threefold mundane qualities, sattva, rajas, tama, and diffuses the Vedic knowledge regarding the mundane world. And finally, I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose glory ever triumphantly dominates the mundane world by the activity of his pastimes, being reflected in the mind of recollecting souls as the transcendental entity of ever blissful cognitive rasa. Ever blissful cognitive rasa. And so let us worship. Let us worship and not criticize. And when we have these beautiful images, if we can think of these when we chant, we can stay attentive and not, so we can click bringing Krishna more and more into us instead of 1,728 clicks of offensiveness by being inattentive. So please forget my bad Sanskrit. It was really on display today. I just have too much of an American mouth. It just doesn't come out. Same thing with the tilak. I try. So please forgive me for my offenses. Please forgive me for any thing I might have misspoke. Thank you for the great honor of diving into these verses. It really has been a great meditation this week to think, I can't criticize Shishya Paul because what the heck am I doing with my life? And I know better. So I'll look in the chat. Krishna Kumari, sister friend, please share. Do you have anything to share? Or just your beautiful smile is quite enough.
Yeah. I'm just baking some muffins for Krishna and just so happy to hear your joy and your determination. It's very awe-inspiring and auspicious today for me. I aspire to have more discipline and enthusiasm as you do. Thank you.
You do the greatest service. You care for children. That is a service that for me, I think it's the greatest service of all time. I see Adi and Bhakti Center have raised their hands. Please speak. I think they're Adi, you're still on mute. Bhakti Center is still on mute.
Can you hear us okay?
Yeah, you're a little light, or maybe it might be me.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, there we go. Thanks, Adi.
Delightful class. We love your sparkling effervescence, and especially because you're sprinkling the class with Shastra. Srila Prabhupada's classes, he speaks about something and then he backs it up with Shastra, and it's refreshing, and it's like bathing or like sharpening a knife. That there's a clarity there. There's a precision of language. Sometimes we drift into saying, I think this, and I think that, and I think the other thing, or what I wanted to say, but your class is free from that. So I find myself relaxing and able to just take it in without trying to figure out whether or not what that person thinks is in line with scripture, or what they want to say is in line with scripture. And so we found it very comforting and solidly inspiring to hear you speak with such joy. And an interesting point about criticism is we have this very high philosophy, very precise criteria for what it means to be a devotee and practice devotional service. So we want to be able to say these things. But Krishna is asking us to, Prabhupada is asking us to speak about the criteria for what is true. And that doesn't mean that we're criticizing others. We're speaking about the principles. Like we mentioned the other day, Jesus said that love the sinner, hate the sin. So we're not criticizing the person. Who knows? Maybe that person is no longer doing that offensive behavior. Maybe they've confessed it, repented, and been forgiven. We're still meditating on this. She did this, he did that, he said this.
Yes.
You don't know, you know. So the point is, but we can very clearly and emphatically and with great enthusiasm and confidence say, this is what Krishna says, that we're not the body, that there's a reaction for every action, that there's a birth after this birth, you know, and the principles are very easy to, you know, speak with power and accuracy. And then the criticism of a person says, judge not, lest you be judged.
Mm.
So it's not that we're just like wishy-washy and we don't ever say, this is recommended, this is forbidden. We need to say those things without any understanding of whether or not that applies to a particular person in a particular situation. So there's threading the needle, you know.
Mm.
Speak the truth, speak the truth, unabashedly, no qualms, for the benefit of others, for Krishna's pleasure, and for the clarity of like where we're going, where we are, where we might go, where we shouldn't go. This is really easy to say, and we don't have to be shy about that. Anyway, we prayed to Prabhupada what to say, and that's what he gave us, and we hope that that's in accord with Guru and Shastra. Well, glories to Srila Prabhupada. How wonderful is Krishna that he's giving us a path of truth.
Thank you, Adi. Yes, indeed. I mean, that's right. You know, in the 17th chapter, Krishna says, he says, speak the truth, but and then he also says, you know, how to speak it. And so I always think of that a lot because somebody can use truth as a bludgeon or, you know, it depends on how they see that. And thank you for your encouragement. It all comes from my Guru Dev, who loves you so much, Adi, and is so encouraging to you in so many ways. He speaks about your center and the work you're doing almost every class he gives, and can't wait to get back there when he returns from India. Krishna Daya Prabhu, you have your hand up.
Thank you for the wonderful class, Jamuna Jaya Devi, and for the wonderful initial kirtan. It was bliss, pure bliss. At one point, you made a very nice contribution that criticism is worse than envy because, you know, it comes out and then. So yes, that's true. But I just want to ask, so when people hold on to the things inside, so that's like a burning charcoal, you know. So once it is out, yes, there will be repercussions, but after that there are chances that people get sobered. So what do you say about that? You know, when you hold on things, but when you say it, then there's a chance that people will understand. So
That's such a good question. And again, Krishna is so wonderful that he was, when I was reading the Midoriya Condemn just yesterday, it talks about Vaishnava Aparad. And one of the things it mostly talks about is that, and then what do you do when it happens? Because don't you love our philosophy? It's like it's very practical. It's going to happen because we are who we are. And so like it says, and I probably can't find it at this moment, but it really says that, and this is something Guru Dev says as well, and he always says this about someone you envy. When it comes out as envy, he says you find some way to serve that person. You find some way to serve that person. And then this is something Maharaj also says all the time. You try to see that person's inspired side. You try to see as Krishna sees. You look for the good. And I forget, you probably know the Bhagavad Gita says it is the yogi by his own experience. I forget what exactly, but I always think that this is me personally thinking whenever there's someone like that and I've expressed this criticism and coming out, I try to beg forgiveness. And you're right, because sometimes when through the forgiveness, there can be a deepening of the relationship, and I try to see their inspired side, and I try to serve them in some way. And really seeing their inspired side, seeing the Krishna in them. And for me, anytime there's service involved, it brings out the good in me, because that is who we are. And so you're right that sometimes getting it out of the canon, because otherwise it's like, "Ah!" You can work it in this way. But yes, there's one particular thing that happened when I was on tour as a young dancer, and there's this fellow, and it wasn't actually me, but he really didn't like me, and I couldn't figure out why. So in response, I was 20, so so bad. I started about him because he's been it. And so finally one day the dancers were staying in the same house, and we were sitting across the breakfast table. And I finally said, okay, what is it? What's going on between us? Why don't you like me? Why have I started to do this? And from that conversation, we just spewed, and there was healing. So you're right. So sometimes it comes out, but I was able then to see the best in him. And that's what I do now that I have a little bit more consciousness. See the best. Thank you for asking.
Thank you so much.
Krishna. Some of us we're getting dirty while in the shower. Not to much, he says. Yes, I I do that too. Yeah. Mandahar, is that a new hand up, or is that the old hand up?
Hare Krishna, Jamuna, Jaya, Mata. Thank you for giving such a nice class. Very strong, important points. My question is in regards to what to do with that energy, that propensity. On one hand, if it's expressed negatively, that will do damage to our spiritual life, as you very nicely stated. And on the other extreme, to take Krishna's words in this context, what can repression accomplish? If it's just repressed unhealthily, then that can also be dangerous, because then it can pent up and then explode, and then it's a whole big expression. So what would you advise, or what maybe you could share some thoughts on how to channel that feeling or propensity in a healthy and positive way?
Thank you, Mandahar. And again, thank you for all your service in the morning program. I very much appreciate it from New Jersey. I think it's very much like what I said to Krishna Daya. It's, I think, always the first thing is to, one of my mentees just yesterday she had a bad thing happen in her life, and she goes, I'm mad. And I was like wondering why I had stopped hearing from her. She goes, I'm mad at Krishna and I'm ashamed of it. And I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to talk to you because I'm ashamed. And the first thing is, we always have to remember Krishna knows. He knows what is within us. He knows that. So having these honest, frank conversations with Krishna, he knows. Krishna, give it to him. I have this tendency. I don't want it, but I realize I have it. And please, please send me the guidance, light that lamp of knowledge within me. Please help me. Send me the book that I will pick up at just that right moment. Send me the devotees in my life that will help me do it. So really I think step one is really to be honest. I've got it. I have this tendency. Let me not whitewash it. But Krishna, I give it to you. I give it to you. And then if we can, like I was saying, Krishna to die, and then if I can see the inspired side in that person, even if it's like they have nice eyelashes, I'm gonna focus on that. I may not have, but boy, their eyelashes are nice. And like focus on that thing, focus on that thing, focus on that thing. Like for me, always double it back on remembering what it's doing to me. What it's doing to me. In the end, if I can stop myself, it's like, what is this doing to me? How is this wrecking my service to Krishna? So those are the things that I would say, like, give it to Krishna. He knows. He knows. Krishna, I need your help here. I don't know what to do when I'm feeling it, and I don't want to feel it. Send me the people in my life to help me. Let me try to see their inspired side. And then let me try at least to see a little bit of good. It's 8:02 is Like, I guess you're a little late. I just don't want to make sure I'm not.
Special darshan. So maybe 2 more minutes.
Okay, good.
But
Okay.
thank you.
Was that helpful at all?
Very much so, yeah. So what I'm hearing is kind of with that energy, taking shelter in Krishna somehow or other through his devotees, through his name, various ways, asking and praying for that guidance.
Praying.
And then also trying to see the good in others and amplify that quality.
Yep. Yep. Maharaj always says, what you appreciate in others appreciates in you. It's sort of like we think about, and I don't know anything about money, but I understand that things appreciate in value, right? So I've always loved that. And the same thing, I forget who it says, is like when you criticize, it's like taking the quality that you're criticizing, it's building a bridge, and you're actually walking they're walking that quality right into your heart. It's like, like, do, here comes the envy, here comes the bad stuff. I'm literally like, open up the door and letting it in. Yeah. I do. I can't stay for the afterglow, just FYI. So after darshan, I will have to leave and actually get to the Bhakti Center. I'm sort of halfway between home and the Bhakti Center today. But oh, Gail, here we go. Don't make it a hard one, Gail. Shower me with your mercy.
No, just quickly saying, Jamuna, that, when Adi was speaking, I thought of this common thing that we hear, condemn the sin, not the sinner. So I think when we criticize people, we often kind of merge the two, the sin and the sinner. There's nothing wrong with, I think there's nothing wrong with condemning bad behavior, because that's just, discrimination. We need to be able to recognize bad behavior, but we shouldn't think that the person who is performing that bad behavior is that bad behavior. That it might be something that they do, is not something that they are. And it's very challenging to separate the two. It is for me, for sure, but I'm trying to live by that, And the other thing is, what's up with that? What was up with that dancer? Who could not like you?
You know what it landed up being? It's the oddest thing. It's all about the false ego. It's about the ankara. I know now. He said, I'm used to being the person that works the hardest. And there, I was the youngest of the group. And he goes, and there I see you. You're working so hard. You get up to things, and it threatened my identity.
Wow. I was hoping you would reveal what it was. That's really interesting.
And now, I don't see him all the time, but I see him from time to time at dance things, and we're so good, and we laugh and talk. We're obviously much older now, but I just remember, I remember that conversation, because for him it was like letting air out of a balloon. He said it, and then I was like, oh. And there was this healing, and from that point on, because we were on the no, we weren't on the road. We were staying in one place. We had still like another 2 months to go of this show. It would have been like horrible to have these feelings, but it was that's what it was. And interesting, it was this person's, it was his identity. I'm the one that works the hardest around here. And who's this little upstart?
Yeah. And, I'm glad you said this, because this brings up my biggest pet peeve in life, is that I think that 99% of our problems is due to lack of communication. We just don't understand what's going on in the other person's head. And you see, just by having a conversation, what a dramatic, I really feel like conversation doesn't get the hype it deserves, it just clears up everything, because miscommunication is what is the fuel of this world, And so, your story really, I think, illustrates that point.
Yeah.
And did I hear you? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Gil.
No, I was going, it was a completely personal note. Did I hear you say that you had a heart problem, or that was just a story, or what was that? Did I misunderstand? That you had when you're talking about your heart being broken, or you had to, it sounded like you had surgery or something in your heart as a child.
No. That's a friend who has had their heart broken. No, I'm fine. I'm as healthy as a horse.
No, I thought you said as a child you had, but yeah, I misunderstood.
Yeah. Oh, here comes Karuna Nimai, who will blow that horn with great vigor. I love it.
Okay.
Hare Krishna, everybody.
Hare Krishna.
Shri Shri Radha Mudidar Gaura Chanjan Sima Bhagavan Ki Srila Prabhupada Ki. Feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we
Hare Krishna. All right. Welcome to the Afterglow. Wonderful class by Jamuna Jaya. That Jai Radha Madhava was so energizing. Jamuna Jaya is so happy in her service to Krishna and Guru. It is very therapeutical to hear from a person like that. Right, Jeffrey Eckler? I see that the therapy worked. Jeffrey Eckler looked grave in the beginning, but now he's smiling.
Very cool.
Hare Krishna. Any takeaways, Jeffrey Prabhu?
I I was thinking while she was speaking about the criticism building a bridge for that to enter. And I was just thinking about how that visual and Jamuna Jaya, in her absence, I will give her some praise. She's just so good at storytelling and creating these verbal visuals that help. I know early in my practice, I did some yoga classes with her, and she speaks so excitedly about the Leela, but also draws out the metaphors so well. And so that bridge into your heart image is not going to leave me for a long time. Haribol.
Yeah. Thank you, Jeffrey. Takeaways. We need one more takeaway. Okay, how about Krishna Chandra Prabhu? What are your takeaways, Krishna Chandra? I've seen you many times, never had a chance to talk to you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I'm very pleased to make your acquaintance, Prabhuji. I don't really have much in terms of a takeaway, but I really enjoyed Jamuna Jaya's class, and I made me think a lot about how we should be very respectful to one another and to just always be optimistic and see the best in others, especially when we deal with our fellow devotees. And we should always wish everyone the best. And in that way, we can kind of mitigate any risk of offenses.
Wow, thank you. Such a profound takeaway, Krishna Chandra Prabhu. Yeah.
Thank you for your kind words, Prabhuji.
Offenses, sometimes we can commit them unknowingly, but if we stay humble and respectful, like Krishna Chandra Prabhu said, we will be saved from the reactions. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you.
I just want to say one more thing. Just like in the Sri Shikshastakam, it's like when Mahaprabhu said about, having being humble and like a straw in the street. So we should also, and it's not an easy thing because we feel like we're in this material world and it's like very, if we become like that, we're just going to be a target for people who are ill-meaning. So we just, we have to have faith that Krishna will protect us ultimately.
Yeah, devotees are not a target. Devotees are a tool, and the tool needs to be hard
Jaya.
so that Krishna can work through us.
Jaya.
All right. Hare Krishna. Okay. Where is Dana Krishna's Radharani? Where is Isaiah? Okay, who's going to say Hare Krishna? Who's the most childlike on this call and wants to say Hare Krishna? Not Jeffrey Eckler. He's too philosophical. Not him. How about Krishna Kumari? And Krishna Chandra, not you. Your voice is too deep for that.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you, Krishna Kumari. Thank you very much. Okay, the yagya is over. Thank you very much. We love you. We need you on a daily basis. Thank you for your association. Happy Saturday. Haribol Om Tat Sat. That's all I know.